Okay, so what if I told you there's a blueprint for life that's so big, so detailed, you can actually see it with a regular microscope? I'm not talking about just a string of code. I mean a physical, striped cable that lays out exactly how our DNA is organized. Today, we're going to decode that blueprint, and you'll never guess where it comes from.
And yeah, it all boils down to this one big question. How on earth can something from the salivary glands of a fruit fly, a larva no less, possibly teach us anything about our own genome? I know, it sounds pretty out there, right? But the answer is absolutely fascinating, and it's all written right there in those stripes.
So what exactly is a Polytene chromosome? Well, picture this. Imagine DNA just keeps making copies of itself, hundreds of them. But here's the twist. The cell never actually splits. Instead, all those copies get stuck together, side by side, like a giant bundle of cables. The result is this absolutely massive structure. We're talking up to 110 times longer than a normal chromosome. It's so big you can see it in incredible detail. I mean, the difference is just staggering. Take a look. On one side, you've got your typical, tiny, compact chromosome. But on the other, that's the Polytene version. It's not just bigger, it's like someone took the genome and stretched it out into this readable map. And those bands, those stripes you see, well, they became the central mystery for scientists. What in the world did they mean?
And that leads us right to our first big puzzle. We've got to decode those stripes. Are they just some random pattern, or is there a hidden language here in all those light and dark bands?
Well, the answer came back, and it was a big one. It's not random at all. That banding pattern is a literal physical map. Every single one of those stripes corresponds to a different kind of genetic material, all packaged up in a very specific way. It's a code.
And this code really breaks down into three visible parts. First, you've got the light interbands. That's where the DNA is all unpacked and accessible. Then there are the gray bands, which are kind of moderately packed. And finally, you have the black bands. These are super compacted, dense regions of DNA. You can really think of it like a spectrum, from open for business to lockdown tight.
Okay, but seeing the physical structure, that was only half the battle. The real breakthrough, the game changer, came when scientists figured out a way to create a totally new kind of map. One that wasn't based on how the DNA looks, but on what it's actually doing. A functional map.
And how they do it? Their solution was brilliant. They created what they called a gemstone palette. So instead of just thinking in terms of light and dark bands, they assigned these beautiful colors, like aquamarine and ruby, to classify different parts of the genome based on their activity. And just like that, they turned a static, physical map into a living, functional one. All right, let's start with aquamarine. You can think of this as the action hub of the genome. It's about 13% of the whole thing, and it marks all the open, accessible DNA. This is where you find the on switches for genes, the transcription start sites. It's the starting line for pretty much everything, from reading a gene to making a new copy of the DNA.
Now, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got ruby chromatin. This is the silent part of the genome, and it makes up nearly half of it. This is the stuff that's inactive, all compacted, and basically locked down. The genes in these ruby regions are mostly switched off, just kind of waiting for a very specific time or a specific type of tissue to wake them up.
Okay, so we've got these colors, and they tell us about function. Now let's put it all together and see how they combine to create what's essentially an instruction manual for a single gene.
Because here's the thing. It turns out these colors aren't just sprinkled around randomly. Nope, they're laid out in a really specific, logical order all along the gene's length, almost like they're telling a story from start to finish.
And this flow is incredibly predictable. It's like a formula. A gene almost always kicks off with aquamarine chromatin, that's the on switch, right? Then immediately after that, you get lazurite chromatin. This is the main body of the gene, the part that actually gets read and transcribed. It's this perfect one-way street. Aquamarine is the ignition, and lazurite is the engine that starts running.
All right, here we go. This is the moment where it all clicks into place. We have the physical stripes we can see, the light, gray, and dark bands, and we have our functional colors, aquamarine, lazurite, and ruby. Now, let's connect the dots. This right here. This is basically the Rosetta Stone for decoding the whole chromosome. Remember those light, unpacked inner bands? Turns out they align perfectly with the aquamarine chromatin, the gene on switches. And the gray bands, the middle ones? You guessed it, that's the lazurite chromatin, representing the active bodies of the genes. And finally, those super dense dark black bands? They correspond directly to the ruby chromatin,
the silenced, inactive parts. The physical map we can see with our eyes perfectly mirrors the functional map we can measure. It's incredible.
So, you might be wondering, why go through all this trouble for a fruit fly? What's the big deal? Well, because this isn't just about flies. This is about a deep, fundamental principle of how life itself is organized.
What scientists ultimately discovered is that this basic organization, this whole system of active zones and silent zones, it's a universal principle. It's how all complex life organizes its genetic code. The fruit fly's giant chromosome isn't some weird fluke. It's a giant, magnified, easy-to-read version of the very same system that's working inside every single one of your cells right now.
You know, the researchers themselves said it best. They called it a portrait of the genome, a portrait showing how it is organized and how it functions. And that's exactly what it is. It's not just some static picture. It's a living, breathing diagram of the genetic engine at work.
And that leaves us with one last, really cool thought to chew on. The humble fruit fly gave us this stunningly clear portrait of a genome in action. It just makes you wonder, if we apply these same principles, what other incredible masterpieces are just waiting to be discovered, hidden deep inside the beautiful complexity of our own human genome?